Hi, I'm Daryl Kulak, and you're in my room. Our topic today is 3 kinds of ROI, thin, thick, and Thurmanator. That's going to mean something to people in Columbus. And for the rest, I'll explain it later. A very long time ago, I was a developer. But I was a special kind of developer. I was known as a PITB developer, pain in the butt developer, to managers and executives. And the reason I got this nickname was because I liked to ask why. I wanted to know the value of what we were building, who this was going to help, how this is going to make money. And this is a frustrating thing to people. So the term early on, even as a developer, I learned this term ROI, return on investment. And it was a frustrating term to me because it seemed like something that other people did before I got involved, and then they kind of weren't even really that interested to show me what the return on investment that was expected of what I was helping to build. So this bothered me. And we've had lots of process changes since then. I won't tell you how many, a lot. And one has been agility, what we're here to talk about in these 2 days. And in some ways, I'm still frustrated because even with agility and Scrum and XP, these different things, the business value does not seem to be at the center of what we're all doing. It still seems to be something that we decide at the beginning. Making sure my shoelace is not untied, that would be embarrassing. It seems to be something we do at the beginning, and then other people are expected to carry out specifications based on that knowledge, but maybe not really knowing it in our heads and in our hearts. So this term, ROI, can't believe so many people came to a financial presentation. This is great. Return on investment. So there's some expectation of a return, and there's some expectation of a cost. And so it's pretty, deceptively simple calculation. ROI equals some amount of profit that we're expecting over the investment expressed as a percentage. And we would like that percentage to be fairly high, maybe 100%, 200%, 300%, because the particular effort that we're working on often needs to pay for itself, to add profit to the company, and then also to pay for the failed efforts that didn't make anything. We have to pay for all of that. So ROI numbers are often very high because of that. If you've ever seen a return on investment calculation, it often looks like fairly detailed as far as the investment side of things. We know all the different costs that are going into this. It's the development team, it's the software costs for the development tools, it's the hardware, it's the compute time, it's the space that we're in. The profit calculations are often very much less detailed. We think good stuff will happen, and we put a number on it. And it's telling that we have so much knowledge on the cost side, and then we're just completely kind of ballparking things on the profit side. So I'd like to introduce you to what I call 3 types of ROI. And this is from the book, which I think some people may have from the giveaway at the front desk. The first type is thin. Next type is thick. And then, of course, this build is taking forever. The Thurmanator ROI. Now again, for people not in Columbus, I will explain this in a bit, but the Columbus people are already smiling. Okay, so let's do number 1 first. Thin ROI. So there's 3 pieces to thin ROI. We have executives, some small group that is calculating the return on investment. They're making that big long list of here's what the things we think we will invest, and then making probably a shorter list that will say will exceed that investment, will generate some profit, and will even pay for those other failed efforts. So that's the first piece. The second is that the development team then ignores that ROI. And I don't mean they go off and do whatever they feel like. I just mean that they build a system to specifications that are gathered through requirements, workshops, and things like that. But they are not so focused back on that ROI statement. It kind of gets put on the shelf or worse. Then the third piece is that we don't attempt to measure that return on investment once we put the software into production. So this is what we'll call thin ROI. I have a few problems with thin ROI. I feel like it discourages our connection from the business value. I feel like it causes that problem of young Daryl, the developer. I mean, kind of even having a hard time getting up in the morning, having a hard time connecting with what I'm doing because I don't understand how it's valuable. And I have to be a PITB to try to start to find out how it's valuable, and nobody wants to tell me. So there's this disconnection. Business value is for those executive guys, and specifications are for us peons, us project workers. So I have that problem. I feel like this is the information's given to us on this need-to-know basis. And that each micro decision that each person is making is not with the full knowledge of what is the value of what we're trying to do. And I think that something is lost when we say, here is the return that we want to get from this project, and then we jump to, and here's a specification of something that will meet that. I think we lose something. I think every time we have that translation, that handoff, I think we lose something. And so I think it's good if the people who are doing architecture, who are doing design, development, testing, user experience, if they all know that here is what we're really trying to accomplish, I think that can be much more powerful because each of us are making micro decisions. Should I place this widget on the screen this way or this way? And those could be informed if we had a better connection to how our work is truly going to be valuable. And valuable doesn't just mean money either. It could mean that this is some contribution we want to make to society. It could be that this is something that's very good for our employee satisfaction or our customer satisfaction. So I have to take a water break. So we'll switch over to type 3. Yes, I know I missed type 2. We'll get to that. But I'm dying to tell you what a Thurmanator is. So this is what, oh geez, it's very scary. lunch at the Thurman Cafe here in Columbus. And so now our out-of-towners will feel like they have to go to the Thurman Cafe. This burger is called the Thurmanator, like the Terminator of burgers. I think it was on some TV shows that people tried to eat them. I tried to eat this one. I got about a quarter of the way through and felt fairly bad after that. So I think of the Thurmanator burger like something that's tasty, something that's kind of awesome, but it's too much for a meal. And so that's why I named this type of ROI after the Thurmanator. So here, our executives still calculate the ROI. We have to figure out if this project's valuable. Development team still ignores what they do and goes off specifications. But we measure our returns in post-production. And so that's the big difference from type 1 to type 3. We're measuring those returns after we've gone into production, and we're trying to see, did it make back the return that we said it would? I have problems with Thurmanator ROI too. The first problem is nobody ever does this. And it's because of the second problem, which is it's a lot of damn work. So we have a project team that's focused on building some software for the X amount of weeks or months, and they finish it, and then they move on to the next thing. And so who's left to do the Thurmanator ROI? It just kind of gets lost. And so it's very seldom something that ever happens. But I have other problems with it too that I want to talk about a bit later. So, Goldilocks, type 2. Thick ROI is we still need executives to calculate that return on investment, but the development team organizes their work based on that value. So they don't ignore ROI, they don't only build applications to spec, but instead they have a focus on how this is really valuable, and they talk about it all the time. And then we do not attempt to measure it post-production. This is thick ROI. So the difference here is the development organizing by value. So I feel like I owe you two explanations. One is, if we're to move towards thick ROI and not the extremes, why should we organize by value? And then the second is, why not measure post-production? Yes, it's a lot of work, but isn't it worth it to know that we really achieved the value that we said we would? Okay, so I'll attack each one of these. I love to organize projects by value, and I feel like a big reason is that I feel like each team member is able to contribute to trying to catch that value, and we need to harness that. So I'll give you a fictional story. Let's say we have a developer on a team, and she loves to play a particular video game that none of the other team members or executives have ever played. And she notices something in this video game that could help a lot with the user interface, the user experience of this application that they're building. Maybe it's a mobile app. She should be able to bring that up, and she should be able to include it. And if she really knows what the value that we're trying to gain with this, again, it might be dollars, it might be some contribution to the company's mission, their objectives for that year. It could be for a societal goal. If she knows where all of this is headed and knows it in fairly good detail, then she can bring up that item and it can get included, and we've now achieved more value. And the second is to solve the problem that I had as a developer, that I didn't like working on things that I didn't know why they were valuable. And so I feel like with thick ROI, we have that ability to connect to things that are really valuable. Okay, so hopefully that worked. Hopefully you're convinced about why organize by value. This is maybe more controversial. Why not measure post-production? So let's say that you calculated the return on investment that we would need. Let's say it was $4 million. And that looked good, so we went ahead with the project. We pushed the button, and software went into production, and we measured it for the next 12 months, let's say. And we found out we got $500,000. So can we effectively critique that development effort based on this number? Well, I want to tell you some other things that happened. One thing that happened is that this software was something we were going to try to sell, but our sales team was going through a power struggle at the time. And so they did not focus on this new product. They were too busy playing politics with who was going to take over the head of sales. At the same time, our company, big company, created another product that could be perceived as competing with the product that we just put out there. So the two kind of were both going after the same market, and customers were choosing one or the other, which diminished everybody. The third is we fell into a recession just as the time that the product came out. And then finally, the CIO left the company. So with all of these other factors, would you still say that our development was a failure? That $500,000 that we got back, not meeting our return on investment requirement of $4 million, that there's something that we could have done in the software development process to solve that. It's hard to say. So I think number one, measuring post-production return on investment is a lot of work, and I think often it might not even be worth it. But I do like organizing by value. So that's why I call it thick. It's a bit more than just somebody saying, here's your ROI, go forth. It's pulling value into everything we do all the way through software development lifecycle. So everybody knows, in Agile terms, we have to organize the work. We've got a bunch of user stories all over the place, and if in a lot of projects where I've been, that can be hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of user stories, and it just could get completely overwhelming. So the typical way to do this is to say, well, we have these kind of super stories, we'll call them epics. And we'll say that these stories belong to this epic, these stories belong to this epic. That makes sense. Hierarchy can help us to simplify. It has its problems, but it does help for simplification. But I want to introduce you to another way of organizing that I call organizing by value. And it's actually not even my invention. It comes from my colleagues at Pillar. They built it even before I joined the company. But little Daryl, the developer, looked at it and said, "Oh, this is gonna work for me. This is gonna work for other team players." So let's say, sorry, water break. I'm just getting over the flu, so. Already have a large perimeter here. Or is it a dance floor? So let's say we're building an inventory system. This is an example we use a lot. It's a complex application. It has some specific functions. And so it would make sense if you're building epics for an inventory system, they might look like the inventory process. We receive an item, we check the inventory, see if we have enough, pick the item, ship the item, restock, and then reconcile inventory at periodic points in time. I have a problem with organizing our epics this way, or organizing our work this way. And that is, does anybody want to guess my problem? It doesn't connect them. So that's one big thing. So I guess you can't see if I point to this screen. And I'm going to have trouble pointing to that screen. The risk is the biggest risk is between these items, is in the handoffs from receive item to check inventory and check inventory to pick item. That's where most of the risk is. It's easy enough to build your little module. It's really hard to get it to integrate with the other functions. Why else do you think this is troublesome? Yes.
Some of them may have a higher value, like they need a higher, or more customers, more people to interact with it, so there's more chance of risk.
Okay, so not only some of these items might be more valuable, but some of the items might have higher risk. And are we really, if we do them in this order, which we're assuming, are we really doing the most risky items first? Okay, I want to add something to that, and that is that if I accomplish these epics one by one, actually in any order, I don't get to a point of value until they're all done, until they're all completely done. So if I get, let's just say I do pick item, and I get that completely done. Okay, now I can pick items, but I can't put pick item into production. I can't, it's not something that I can actually get some value from. So with Pillar, we propose something called value stories. And that's to take an end-to-end approach where we receive, check, pick, ship, restock, but it's a very simple item. So if you think of all of the if then else's and all the complicated structures in all of those yellow boxes, just leave them out. Just do some simple item that has no big deal to it, and let's just run it all the way through. And so that we get to fix this problem of what if there are risks in between? What if some of those boxes are riskier than others? And now we start to know those things. And we've got more of a runway to start to fix them. Sometimes you gotta get more hardware. Sometimes you gotta reorganize the teams, that you find out things that you're surprised about, and you can jump on it and start to fix it. So then once we've done a simple item, maybe then we can do a perishable item. So perishable items are still pretty simple, but they have a few specialties about how you can store them and how you ship them. And then maybe we do a simple item, but we do it for a different warehouse. Maybe there's one warehouse where it's a lot easier to do the software for, but the remote warehouses, you have to add some extra processing. So we'll add that to it. And then we can start to get into the big things like bill of materials. So if a part is made up of multiple parts, is made up of multiple parts, is made up of multiple parts, that gets really crazy. And it can be where a lot of the complexity of an inventory system is. So let's tackle that later on. So we call these value stories. You could still call them epics if you like, end-to-end epics or whatever. But the focus is that by the time we do all of those steps for a simple item, that's actually value. It's actually business value. Now we can say, for all of the simple items, which maybe that's, 20% of our items, we can process those. We could start doing that today. We might not. We might not put that into production, but when people talk about potentially shippable, to me this means this and not this. So I give two definitions here. To me, the definition of an epic is to say, what are the major functions of this application? The definition of a value story is, in what ways is this application valuable? If you could list the ways that this application is valuable, those would be your value stories. We can process simple items all the way through. We can do bill of materials items. We can do perishable items. This probably shows how old I am, but like when software used to come in a box, you'd have features or whatever listed on the side, and then sometimes you'd have like a big, detergent, new and improved kind of feature or whatever. To me, that's what these value stories mean. Now processing perishable items, now processing bill of materials. And if you're always thinking of your applications in that way, trying to go back to when software comes in a box, then I don't know, that just seems like a bit easier with the complicated business applications that we try to build. So I want to give you the advantages of what I see with organizing by value. Like I said, we start to get real value much earlier. And my preference is even within a few weeks. We build something, we call it end-to-end early, and we build something valuable really, really fast, just in a few weeks. And we find out that integration in the last 3/4 of the cycle that we thought was going to be easy is not easy. In fact, it's going to require a whole other team and all kinds of crazy approvals and stuff. Great. We know that now. After a couple weeks, we can jump on it. Also, everyone can question the value. So I have some trouble with the Scrum definition of a product owner, that this is the person who understands the business value. I want all of us to understand the business value and to be able to ask questions about it and to question it. That each of us should be saying, I don't understand why that's valuable. I know we're building stuff here for families. I have a family, and I don't think this is going to work for me. And if every person is able to ask those questions and to challenge it, long after those executives have calculated the ROI, then I think we come out with a better product. And I think every single one of us has something to contribute with that. And if we don't take this type of approach of organizing by value, I think we start to lose that. So it solves the Daryl the developer problem. People have a better connection to the business value, and it makes it more fun and more interesting if they know why they're building, what they're building. That feeling of accomplishment comes sooner, so the first end-to-end is always a little bit of a celebration, and then you just are building on top of that success one after the other. And again, those risky integrations you're able to handle earlier. So for me, that's something I'm passionate about. I'm not a financial person, so it sounds weird to say I'm passionate about ROI, but I am. I want all of us to have that connection, that mental connection, but the heart connection to what we're building, and to know that it's good, and to know that it's going to help people, and to know that it's going to make money. And if we lose that, then I think we're operating more mechanically, and I think we are voiding the contributions of team members who really could be helping towards this. And either they come too late in the cycle, or they're not senior enough, or they're not in the right role. Let's get rid of that. I think if we organize by value, and if we have a culture where anybody can question the value, not just the product owner, but anybody can question it and say, I don't get that. I don't understand why that's valuable. Then I think that's really how we end up with the best software. So, and it sounds like a few people have already had the book, but this is my book, came out 3 weeks ago now. And we're very proud and happy to have it out there. 11 years in the making, so a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. My co-author, Hong Lee, is not at the conference today, but we've put a lot of pride into this. 3 kinds of ROI is one of the sections in there, but there's lots of other pieces to it. What we say is that this is not about the end game. So this is not, I think, SAFe and Nexus and LESS, all these different frameworks do a great job of describing the city on the hill, describing where we should all be. And they all sound good. They all sound like clean streets and nice buildings and nice people and stuff. But this book is about the ugly, messy journey that you have to take to get there. So what happens when the PMO says they don't like your status reports? What happens when enterprise architecture wants you to do another review of your design document? What happens when HR says, what the hell's a generalizing specialist? All of these things get in the way as we're trying to get towards the end happy place. So instead of describing one more end happy place, we just decided to describe the whole messy journey to get there. It's available now, and also when my voice is not screwed up, I've been working on an audiobook, and it'll be available next month. It'll be available in June. So if you're more of an audiobook listener, please feel free to download that. It'll be on audible.com, and I'll post something on LinkedIn or on the Pillar website and stuff to let you know that it's there. So that's all I've got. Thank you. We have time for questions, so my voice will continue to deteriorate, but we'll wait until it finally goes kaput. Any questions? Yes.
So not exactly a question, more like my own interjection or whatever, but I would, in my experiences, not every developer is the same type of PITB that you were. That there's a lot of developers out there who don't really think that way or care to think that way about what's the business value. They just kind of want to be told, the requirements, and then they can go do their thing. And I personally make a point of just making sure I recruit and hire developers that naturally are that kind of pain in the butt, who want to be attached to the value and understand it. So that's just my kind of insight from my experiences.
Yeah, okay. So not every developer is a PITB. So they don't all necessarily want to know about the business value, and your point is that something you hire for, which has been your approach. I feel like once it starts to get into a cycle, everybody wants to show their own creativity, and they want to have their own little piece of the pie of the application that goes in. So I find even with the people that you might not expect, sometimes they jump in and provide some of their suggestions as well. But yeah, it's a good point. Engage everybody. Some people contribute more, some people contribute less, yeah. Anyone else? Yes, in the back. I'd give you the microphone, but it's infected, so I'll just repeat what you say. Who are the stakeholders? Yeah, so I didn't go into the structure of value stories, which is in chapter 6 or 5. But the stakeholder of a value story is the enterprise. So how does the enterprise benefit from this? And not your customer's enterprise, but your enterprise. So if you're Microsoft and you're building an application and you know that people are going to use it, this is how does this piece of value, how does this slice help Microsoft? And there's actually a whole skill, because sometimes it's too big. Sometimes this helps Microsoft because it adds an extra feature that people will be willing to pay for, an add-on module, let's say. Well, that's too big. So then we have to slice it even further, but we try not to slice this way. We try to keep slicing this way. And that's an art. That's a hard thing that a lot of people have a hard time with, but we try to provide guidance. But yeah, that's the stakeholder. So it's, as Microsoft, I want some feature so that I can get this business value. Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, Jen.
So you mentioned earlier about getting developers engaged, but and also getting people to a why. So in large organizations, oftentimes leaderships and executives don't want to share the why. You know, if you've got a job, that's why. That, you know, it's very parental and command time down. When you're in a team in an organization like that, how can you find purpose and get to the why, even if you're not given that, even if it's not accepted?
Yeah, sometimes even the corporate culture is just like, we don't disclose that because, you know, you could quit the company, you could go work somewhere else, and you could tell them all this stuff. Yeah, I think it's just, I don't have a good answer to that. For me, it's just badgering. So my my job is often doing enterprise transformation. So those are the kind of choke points that I go after, and I try to stir up the corporate culture and try to make it different. So I usually have, in my own role, I usually have control over that. But for a person who is just feeling like they're a cog in the wheel and they're not connected to the value, you know, that's a very difficult place to be in. And it's kind of what I was describing at the beginning. I don't think I ever got real satisfaction from those answers. It's not your job, you don't worry about it. Why aren't you coding? Yeah. There are those situations for sure. Anyone else? Yes? Yes. And frankly, we've had good luck with that. But yes, it is a challenge to that product owner that you've got these people who are not, you know, chemists. If the product owner's, you know, developing a chemistry product, these are people who are not chemists, and yet they're questioning. But sometimes that novice questioning can a question that no chemist would have ever asked can actually be a really helpful thing. And so it's a coaching, it's definitely, again, that's a role that I often play. It's coaching those product owners to be able to handle the questions that they get. Sorry, I noticed Dan Weeby's here today too. Hi, Dan. Anything you want to add to that? Because I know you're quite good at the questioning of the product owners, even though you're not a specialist in each one of those areas. Do you have any advice?
Well, a place that source for questions that I found very, very useful is QA. Maybe that's just because I'm a developer, and so thinking like a developer is not an unusual thing for me. But I find that really good QA people think in a way that nobody else does. I can give you a little example if you want.
Sure.
It doesn't have to do with QA people. It has to do with my basement. I live in a house that's like 120 years old, and at some point there was an addition made onto it that has a kitchen in it and a bathroom, and the pipes. Every winter, the pipes freeze under the addition. So there are heater tanks around the pipes, but it doesn't help. They were still freezing. And I would go down in the basement during the winter and see the little pilot lights. I could see that the heater tapes were plugged into that was way over in the corner, that was near the heater tapes, really nothing else. That outlet was controlled by the switch that controlled the lights in the basement. It's go down to the basement and check on the heater tapes were working, they were working. That's the kind of problem that a QA person can find for you that nobody else can.
Sorry if you didn't hear that. I'm not going to repeat all of it, but QA people have a very good ability to ask those probing questions, the business value questions, and can also be people who can help coach that product owner. And a lot of times we work with product owners who are new to the product owner role, so they're kind of looking for how does this role work? I used to be doing this clerical job. Now I'm all of a sudden this product owner. What does that mean? And they're open to it. But just to answer your question, we've had pretty good luck with that. So we haven't had product owners who are like, wait a minute, that's my job. You're stepping on my toes. I guess a lot of it is how you're interacting with them. Okay, maybe we can do one more and then I'll let you go. Or not. Okay, thanks very much.